it or shooting it.
Right. But they'll say, well, these are prescribed.
Right.
But as they continue to abuse that medication and they need more and more, everybody has a financial limit of what they can afford.
Right.
And when you are hurting and you're in agony, and we've got so many hoops you have to jump through now to get the opiates, the prescription painkillers, which is a good thing, but then it leads to I have to fulfill this need somehow.
So how do they do it?
Heroin.
Heroin is usually another step, also drug diversion. And what that means in our industry is you get the pills illegally. You find somebody else who went to the dentist and got them, or you doctor shop, and that means you go to a new doctor and try to use your husband's insurance or whatever. You tell him to go in there and fake knee pain. And that's part of the fascinating reality of the opiate crisis is when we talk about 1 in 5 young people are dying from it, we don't just mean it's a young people problem. Okay, I've had patients that are, just as Nick pointed out, are physicians. I've had patients that are dentists. I've had patients that are in their 50s and 60s. They have chronic pain, and they're given this magic pill that does work. It's very effective, but it comes with a price. It's like a devil's bargain because basically, even though it takes away the pain, it's very effective at that. It was designed for cancer pain. It was designed for people that have acute terminal cancer. This is the way you go out. This way you can have pain-free death. That's essentially what it was for.
Yeah, because it didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was addictive.
Who cares? You're at the end of your life.
Right.
So the pros outweigh the cons. But then it started getting marketed as a cure-all. Hey, this will beat the crap out of Tylenol and ibuprofen. This takes away the pain. And it was marketed to physicians as the most ethical thing you can do for your patient is take away their pain. But then we started realizing this stuff makes you non-functional. You start needing to chase it. You need more of these stupid things just to get by.
Well, and then there's also the effect of opioid-induced hyperalgesia, which...
Right, unpack that.
Yeah, so essentially what that means is that with long-term use of opiates, it actually makes your pain receptors more sensitive.
Yes.
So things that weren't painful in the past, now, because you've been using so many opiates, become painful.
Whenever you're sick and you feel those body aches and you feel like your skin just hurts, and you feel really achy, your joints hurt, you're very sensitive, and you wrap yourself usually in blankets and sweaters and you just try to insulate yourself from the world. That's what it feels like to even be on opiates when they're working. Because if opiates are working, they start to numb out your pain, but then your pain receptors grow bigger and make more because they're sensing that they're not working. So your body responds to the turning off that the opiate does and makes it more sensitive. And so then whenever you don't have the opiate in your system, A, you're in absolute physical and emotional agony because of the lack of the opiate in your system, and B, your own body is betraying you because now it has become hypersensitive to the world. And so guys, it's a perfect storm. And then on top of that, it doesn't matter if you're 15 or 50, the pain is real. The pain is driving you away and toward these things. So you go get more of these pills, or you get a higher dose, or you go get them illicitly, or you go divert them. If you need to, you go to heroin. And we think heroin, oh, that's for filthy people. Heroin is economics, folks. It's 1/3 the price, 2 to 3 times more effective. All the heroin users I know tell me, dude, I did that out of pure market knowledge. That was not me being nefarious. It was me being ethical and intelligent, right? So they start smoking heroin. That doesn't work after a while, so they start shooting heroin. And this is where we get to opiate-related deaths. Opiates will suppress your respiratory system and your heart rate. It's a downer, right? Well, it's a very acute and powerful one. It's enough to actually shut your system off. And that's what essentially overdose is. Once you're putting this into your body at such high doses, which you have to work your way up to, your body has the risk every single time you use it of just turning off. And we call that an overdose, where you just die, right? Well, another thing that started happening was the market started becoming flooded with a new substance called fentanyl. Fentanyl makes heroin look like dishwater.
Right.
Way more powerful. And you'd think, well, God, why would anybody use that? Because it's a never-ending climb. Just like you graduated from the first pill to 2 pills, you graduate from heroin to fentanyl. And then eventually they start using fentanyl. They have no choice. Once you've tasted fentanyl, there is no going back. It's a devil's bargain. It solves the problem. But now it's a new problem because the bar has been raised.
A lot.
Now fentanyl will kill you. Every time you take it, it's a shot in the dark, you're going to die. But what happens is maybe you go to a detox. You're getting sick. You're absolutely lousy. Your life's falling apart. You're having to use this dope all day, every waking moment. Every dollar in your account goes to getting more of this. It is a survival carousel that you can never get off of. If you go get detoxed at a rehab like ours, what happens is your body readjusts. It goes back down to kind of like a zero. Well, then whenever you relapse, you don't go back to one pill.
You go back where you left off.
You go back where you left off. And that's why people die. Because that same tolerance that forced you all the way up to the heaviest amount of weight. Think of a bodybuilder whose body's gotten so strong that he can lift a freaking truck. You know, you could hit him with a truck and you'd leave a dent in the truck and the guy would walk away. Now imagine that you could like take his entire body mass and shrink it back down to a normal man. Then you hit him with a truck. He says, hit me with the truck. That's what I'm used to. And you're like, no, dude, this will kill you. And it will. And that's essentially what happens when these folks overdose because they're still stuck on it. You might think, well, Jim, hold on. They got clean, right? They got medically detoxed. Why would they still need this medicine, or why would they still seek the heroin? And this comes back to the concept of addiction and why it's complicated. It's not just the physical craving, it's also the mental side of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways of looking at this. There's what's called we'll talk about the mental behavioral impaired control cycle. So there's going to be a test later, so I hope you're all taking notes.
Yeah, this is all vocab.
I'll simplify this. Essentially, it kind of goes back to what we know with operant conditioning.
Yes.
Right? So operant
so think
conditioning.
Pavlov's dogs.
No, that's classical conditioning.
Classical conditioning.
Operant is B.F. Skinner.
Oh, okay, Skinner.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. So if a behavior is rewarded, it's more likely for the behavior to continue. If
Right.
a behavior is punished, that makes it less likely for the behavior to continue.
Right.
Right. So it's almost amazing the link between trauma and addiction.
Right.
And so we work with so many people that have been dealing with trauma since childhood or for a long period of time, and they find themselves addicted to substances. Well, why does that happen? Well, because those substances produce an escape, right? So I'm dealing with all of these issues from childhood, the death of someone close to me, or PTSD from violence I experienced or was exposed to. And that use provides a temporary relief. Mm-hmm. So that behavior is reinforced.
Right.
It's being rewarded. So now I experience the consequences of that use and I have more stress.
Right.
So how did I deal with stress last time?
Right.
I get that temporary relief, and it becomes a never-ending cycle. You're chasing your tail.
And this is different than physical withdrawal. This is different than physical craving. This is the emotional and psychological connection to the drug.
Right.
And this is why when we treat somebody at a rehab, it's all the above. That's why you're going to find doctors and nurses and therapists and counselors and yoga and meditation and nutrition and dietitians and all of it, because it's a whole person disease. It's very hard to deal with. And even if they're successful, the relapse rate is still very high because it's out there, it's in the world, and they don't know how to live their life without this stuff.
And also looking at the age of onset. When did they start using?
Right.
Because those adolescent years and early adult years are very important in how we develop coping skills.
Yes.
So for the average child, they've got a problem, they cope with it.
Right.
So now they've developed a coping skill. Now problem number 2 comes along. So we try coping skill number 1 and that doesn't work, so we create a new one.
Right.
And then now problem 3. So we try the first 2 coping skills, they don't work, so we develop the third. So we can see how we develop coping skills based off of our coping skills not working every time.
Yes.
This is the problem with substances, is that it's not that they don't work. It's that they work so well that the person does not develop any alternative coping skills.
They only have plan A.
Right. So when we have somebody who's in their 30s and they have been using since they were 14, we put them into our program. The very first thing we do is we remove their primary coping skill.
Right.
And now we find out that they have the coping skills of a 14-year-old.
Yes.
Because they never had to develop any other coping skills.
And we actually refer to that as emotional age. And so one of the first things we're interested in whenever you come into rehab is we're trying to figure out when you started using, because we pass that information along to all the other therapists and nurses. So we know when we're talking to you, we're talking to a 13-year-old. Even though you look like a 50-year-old. We have to figure that out.
Right, and you may be worldly, intelligent, experienced.
Doesn't matter how many degrees you have.
But at the end of the day, it's going back to those coping skills and kind of where
you
you're
have
at
the emotional resilience of that age. So when we think about this as an epidemic, folks, what we've hopefully done just now is educated you. What the hell are we even talking about? What is this drug? Why is it unique? Why is it different than other drugs? Why has it been uniquely devilish in trying to solve? And part of it's because we're fighting on every front. We're fighting the pharmaceutical industry, who is all too happy to pour this into our systems and try to sell this everywhere they possibly could. In other countries, did you know it's illegal to market a pharmaceutical drug directly to an audience? There is no commercial during the football game where they go, "Hi, try Profexa." And there's like people happy in the background, holding hands next to a lake. Try Cialis. It'll be good for your side effects may include instant death. That's illegal in other countries, but that happens here. And for like 30 years, the opiates were number one.
Yeah, and I think it's important to talk about this in other countries because this does not seem to be a world phenomenon. This seems to be a U.S. thing. Mm-hmm. The United States population consists of 4% of the entire world population, and we consume over 80% of the world opiate supply.
Right. It's all here.
That's, yeah.
It's insane. And even though it's grown in Afghanistan, but it's shipped here. So, guys, I hope that you feel educated about it. I hope you feel like you understand it. When we talk about 1 in 5 young people under 35 now dying from this, we're talking about the plague. Okay, this is the most significant thing, the most significant health crisis that could ever happen in our country. So significant, the American Surgeon General just wrote an entire report about it. The last time a report came out from the Surgeon General, it was about tobacco. And you know how the world changed when we all started attacking tobacco. They got sued for billions of dollars. It funded scholarships and health plans in every single state. And that entire industry fell apart. Now everybody's vaping. So that's the attack plan that we're on. And people ask, well, how do you fix this? Do you make them illegal? No, because they're already out there, right? When somebody's in pain, you just take away this stuff. It's not necessarily ethical to do that. It takes an all-of-the-above solution, which is what rehabs are. But then you hear John Oliver get on there and complain about rehabs because they're springing up all over the place to try to address this problem, and they're not always well-equipped to deal with it. They're not always professionalized. We're trying our best. Now, our program is fortunate in the sense that we're highly licensed, we have the best of the best, and we don't have to run the same risks as our competitors. But I also feel for them. A lot of our competitors that are trying their very best but aren't equipped for the problem, it's because the problem is so outrageously big, nobody's equipped for the problem. And we're all just like throwing stones at a tank and trying to slow it down.
Well, I think educating the public is going to play a big role in how to fix this problem as well, or at least how to address the problem. Because, kind of going back to your point earlier, there's a difference between acute pain and chronic pain.
Right.
And people have the idea, this expectation that opiates should be used to treat any pain.
Right.
And that's not true, right? Opiates can be effective for acute pain.
Right.
You just had shoulder surgery or something.
Morphine. Boom.
And so you're going to need that for a couple days, help you get through it. Chronic pain, you have to ask what is the end goal?
Right.
Because if you get into the idea that we're going to prescribe this medication so that you're going to be pain-free the rest of your life, well, it's going to be a short life because we're going to have to continue upping the dose.
It's just not possible.
Yeah. So
it's an all-the-above solution, man. It comes with education. It comes with treatment. It comes with psychology. It comes with medicine. It comes with government support. It comes with government funding. It comes with healthcare insurances paying the bills so that people's lives can be changed and live, and understanding it's an expensive venture to save lives, but this is the freaking American plague, and you're going to have to finance it. It's a lot of things, folks, but I hope that you feel educated today. I hope you feel like you had a better, more honest, more transparent, more clear, and easily understood treatment of this issue than perhaps you've ever bumped into before. But horrifying data, but something we have to take very seriously, and hopefully our listeners are part of the solution, not part of the problem.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to handle insecurity when you feel like your partner is better looking than you.
I'll tell you all about it.
Jim's going to tune in a lot on this one. All right, we'll be right back.
We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy, and we're jumping into our advice. And this question is unlike anything I've ever seen. Very excited to read it. It's got a few words on here, but every single word adds more context, and I want to unpack it. It's pretty good. All right, here's what it's titled. Average-looking wife of very handsome husband. It just gets more difficult every year. I'm 43, he's 44. We've been together 21 years and married for 18. Since literally the first night we met, people have commented on how hot he is, and how weird or unlikely it is that he's with me, or how lucky I am. He's been approached by modeling agents and has intermittently had at least one other woman chasing after him for decades. I'm not ugly. I guess when we first met, I was